Adam Glazer, welcome to Global Travel Media. How are you today?
I'm good, thanks, John. How are you?
Good. I've got this feeling you're a bit intimidated, a bit worried about what I'm going to ask you today. No, I'm only kidding. I'm only kidding. Now, you're a consumer advocate, aren't you? So, which is a really interesting sort of role to have. And what I've been reading about you on Facebook in particular, you've become sort of the unofficial champion of refund recovery for many consumers, and you've become a bit of a specialist in this space. And I know you've been talking with governments and so on, and I know a lot of that's confidential and you can't reveal that quite yet because it says yet to come out. But I thought it'd be useful to have a chat with you and ask you, well, how and why have you taken this role on? Because with COVID, companies taking deposits, not refunding them and so on, I know that you've done some amazing work in this space. So tell me your story.
Yeah, well, we booked with Travel Associates way back then to fly out for my sister's wedding in June, and we were going on a cruise before that through Italy, and we paid a $300 minimal amount, $300 each, me and my wife, $600 total as a deposit. And Flight Centre said to us, or Travel Associates, I should say, that we had two options. We could either get a $600 credit or a $600 refund minus the $300 cancellation fee for me and $300 cancellation fee for my wife, which net us $0, John.
Yeah.
So I pretty much thought to myself, we didn't cancel. What's the story with this? And as I looked further and further into it, I saw it was affecting a lot of people, and obviously a lot worse than us from a financial perspective, as well as mental health and the like. So we ended up starting a Facebook group for it, and it's pretty much gone from there. There's now 3 Facebook groups that I'm looking after, and I've got a team that's naturally helping a lot with it. Yeah, that's pretty much that.
So what's your background? Have you ever been involved in travel at all?
Never. Barely knew how to spell the word before this, John.
So that's a bit of a shock for you to see that these things happen where companies can turn around and say, terribly sorry, we're going to charge you a fee. You're not going to get a refund, so therefore pretty well you're going to be zero. And you've dealt with some people who've spent some very large sums on holidays and have been struggling to get them back, correct?
Yeah, well, I've dealt with people that have spent upwards of around the $100,000 mark. In terms of some elderly women that spring to mind that were around the 100 mark. I've dealt with a lady who was genuinely suicidal. There may have been underlying mental health illness there, but she really did push her just about over the edge. I've dealt with many terminally ill people trying to get back money. And one that really sprung to mind is it was a gentleman. Thank goodness he ended up getting back his money. But a gentleman who was going on his final trip with his wife because they knew she was gravely ill. Anyway, COVID came. She unfortunately passed, and they were offered a credit instead of a refund.
Oh my goodness. That is incredible behavior, isn't it? And when you talk to these companies, okay, on behalf of your clients per se, because you're not charging these people for doing this work, are you?
No.
So when you're talking to these companies and you say, "Oh, Adam Glazer here, I'm a consumer advocate. I'd like to talk about, and I'm sure you get a letter from the client to say that you can act on their behalf," and you start your story, what sort of reaction do you get from the tour operators or whoever you're dealing with?
I think that to an extent they're taken back. That I know of naturally doing this 24/7 over the past 9 months. I've got a fair background of what's been going on, so a lot of them are a bit taken back by the amount the knowledge that I've really gathered. And look, I do speak to companies on behalf of members. However, what I generally do is I'll talk to the members. I don't have time to be speaking to on behalf of 16,000 people.
Yeah.
The reality with everything else that we're doing. So I'll normally speak to the members. I'll tell them how I would approach things if it was me. I'm not a lawyer, have never claimed to be a lawyer or in that area. It's just pretty much from my opinion what I would be doing if I was them. And then I'll help them every step of the way. And then normally after the first letter or the first phone call they've had, they'll contact me again, and we'll pretty much go step by step. Now there are situations where I do speak. I'll have three-way conversations with them, or on occasion I'll even speak on their behalf with their permission. But the majority of the time it is just having a chat to them and letting them know how I would approach the situation that they're in.
So are these situations where the booking conditions don't allow the companies to give a refund, or is it just the company trying it on very often?
They vary. I mean, there are some companies that, as you put it, it certainly appeared that they were trying it on with a customer. There are sometimes some terms and conditions. The issue that we've had with terms and conditions is, as I'm sure you're aware, John, some of the companies have, we've discussed this previously, some of the companies have changed their terms and conditions retrospectively, which is a whole nother ballgame.
You can't do that.
That's exactly right. You can't.
That's unbelievable. You hang on. So you're telling me that they've sold people a holiday under some terms and conditions, and then COVID comes along, right? And then they don't like what's happening, so they then issue new terms and conditions that are totally different to the ones under which the people booked.
That's exactly right, John. That has certainly happened.
That's unbelievable. Yes, that's incredible. Okay, but look, I mean, the situation in the UK is very different. Now, we used to have a situation here in Australia where people's money was protected and so on. And I've talked to a couple of tour operators recently who said, look, you know, we actually always put our money in trust accounts. We do refund people's money and so on, and particularly if there's a compassionate reason. But in the UK, it's a different ballgame, and in Europe, isn't it? Tell me about that. And why do you think we don't have that here?
Why we don't have it, that is a very good question. But what I can, they definitely have much stronger consumer protection there when it comes to travel. Well, for starters, they've got atoll protection, which protects against insolvency if a company goes under, from my understanding, if a company is atoll protected. Whereas we used to have something over here called the TCF, the Travellers Compensation Fund, which I believe was no longer 2014 from memory.
Yeah, that's right. It ended. Yeah, absolutely. And then, you know, there's a sort of a hybrid version, but I mean, that's collapsed as well pretty well now. So, yeah.
Yeah. And STA obviously springs to mind.
Yeah.
It's an STA obviously springs to mind immediately. A lot of the customers that book through STA have been left in a lurch to a large extent, because at the end of the day, where do they turn? Their fate's pretty much in the administrator's hands.
So they become a creditor then to the company, and you've got Mr. Average in Dubbo or whatever, right? Okay, he spent $20,000 or $30,000 on the cruise of a lifetime with an STA, and he becomes a creditor, and he's got to fight it out with the rest of them. And of course, top of the line in any administration is the administrator. He gets his fees before anybody else gets anything.
Yeah, and look, there's a lot of uncertainty, and that's and look, fingers crossed there aren't many companies that go under as a result of COVID when it comes to travel. I mean, look, the way things are going, who knows? But that could become an even bigger issue going forward, the fact that we don't have protection in that area. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, the customers paid in good faith, and they are not receiving their money back the same way when they didn't get what they paid for.
That's right. I mean, what was interesting was that, you know, it sort of smacks a bit of a class action scenario. But the point is, because all these consumers are dealing with different companies, a class action wouldn't work, would it? Because it's got to be, say, one company who's not doing the right thing with a whole load of people who are aggrieved, then they can start a class action. But these are dealing with lots of different companies, aren't they?
I don't know. I'm not an expert on the class action area. I know that there has been a company that has been looking into it, Slater and Gordon. And I'm not sure exactly where they're up to at the moment. I know that they were gathering interest, but there are a lot of people, a lot of aggrieved people from that have dealt with a lot of different companies. That's one thing I can definitely confirm.
So, look, obviously I know there's, you know, all sorts of issues around naming names and shading and everything. I don't want you to do that. But I mean, obviously some of the better named companies that we know are doing this. And I mean, for example, I've been fairly vociferous in global travel media about some of our friends in the aviation business who are still taking deposits for future bookings, still taking money, and they haven't refunded money since March either, which is pretty awful, really. And then another operator who doesn't fly internationally anymore is, yes, they're giving credits, okay? But let's say I spent $25,000 on a holiday in the USA and booked through this particular operator. They offer me a credit that I can only use domestically in Australia because they only fly in Australia. Now, well, that's a heck of a lot of flights to Brisbane and back, you know? So
It is. And,
it's just crazy stuff.
And that has been one of my arguments, how if an airline is doing that, how could you expect if a individual or a family have paid to go overseas and they quite obviously through COVID are unable to achieve that. And going forward, there are companies out there that aren't necessarily flying overseas. What my argument is, you pay for an overseas holiday, you're unable to get it. How are you meant to spend, as you rightfully said, John, $20,000, $25,000, $30,000 on domestic flights? It's a lot of Melbourne to Sydney, I can tell you.
It's a heck of a lot. It's a bit like going to a car dealer and buying a Jaguar, and you pay for a Jaguar, and then they say, I'm terribly sorry, you can only have a Kia Rio.
Yeah, and or you can have a credit for it.
Yeah, take it or leave it. Yeah, I mean, how many Kia Rios are you going to buy with that? Okay, so how can people now, I mean, I know you're snowed under with stuff at the moment, but you have a Facebook page, okay? So people can get onto your Facebook page. Tell us how to do that.
Yeah, sure. So as the main one at the moment, because naturally there are a lot of companies that have been involved with a lot of people that have been having a lot of issues with different companies. There's a group called Travel Industry Issues, the need for change for Australians. Yeah. And that is pretty much all about discussing, firstly, the issues that the consumers are having, and as well about the need for change to the current, to the protection that we've currently got. Because to me, especially looking at overseas, we're certainly falling behind, and we definitely need that looked at seriously.
Are you finding the travel industry, so if I was a travel agent and I was having difficulty in resolving an issue with a tour operator or an airline or a cruise company, can they call on your assistance and guidance?
Look, I haven't had that situation as of yet, but I speak to, and I completely sympathise with the current predicament that the travel industry is in. And look, if I had someone in the travel industry reach out to me, I'd be more than happy to have a chat and see if I could be of assistance. My group is open to both consumers, because naturally that is the premise of the group. The consumers that have been having issues, as well as I've got a lot of industry people on the group as well, because at the end of the day, a lot of people involved in the industry want to see change. And they want to see people behaving properly. You see, part of the issue with the travel industry at the moment is there are some really brilliant people, and I know a lot of the travel agency groups and several of the cruise companies and airlines are really behaving well and doing what they can to help their customers. It's not rocket science to work out, is it, that, you know, going forward, the companies that deal with people well will be the ones that will survive and will have a great reputation. The others, I mean, you're going to think twice about dealing with them. So it's very hard for travel agents at the moment as an intermediary to deal with some of these issues. But there are also over in Europe and the UK, they've got certain laws in place to protect the consumer when it comes to airlines and also package travel. So you've got EU 261, which pretty much means if you are traveling anywhere within Europe or the UK, or you're leaving Europe or the UK to go anywhere in the world, it's a bit confusing. Or if you're going to Europe or the UK on a European airline, you are protected in the instance that a flight is cancelled on you. Whereas over in the States with US DOT, Department of Transportation, very similar, except it's simpler from the perspective of if you're traveling within the USA, if you're going to the USA or coming back from the USA and the flights are cancelled on you, not you cancel, but the flights are cancelled on you, then you are entitled to a full refund.
Wow.
Now,
Okay. Yeah.
now they've also got package travel protection over in the EU and UK, where if you purchase a what's considered over there to be package travel, and it doesn't go ahead, so for any reason, it has to be cancelled. Again, not through yourself, but through the company you book through. You're entitled to a full refund.
Wow.
Whereas over here, Australians are left vulnerable
Yeah.
to the extent that there's a lot of unrecoverable costs being charged by different companies.
Yeah.
And there are other companies out there saying, we're just going to offer you a credit instead of a refund. And there are a couple of the things that we're calling on when we ask for additional protection in Australia.
Yeah. And how are you getting on with that at the moment?
Well, it's a bit of a process. We've submitted to the relevant parties, the relevant consumer groups, and politicians. We've submitted our papers in terms of the proposed legislative reform, and we'll see how it goes. It's still in the early stages, but yeah, we'll see how it all goes.
Brilliant. Well, Adam, thank you very much for your time today. It's been incredibly useful. Very best wishes with your endeavours. You're an extremely generous man to do all this and fight the cause of the little man, you know, or the undertrodden, because that's how people feel. I mean, I've read so many things about people phoning, spending a week on the phone trying to get through to an airline, and then they get hold of somebody, or it rings out for hours and hours on end, then they get hold of somebody and they're not interested in talking to them. They just get fobbed off, and it's unacceptable behavior. So Adam, thank you for your time today, and we look forward to hearing a lot more news about the success of your endeavors. Thank you.
Great, cheers.